Okay, welcome everyone. This is our 171st Reading Online Sports Economics Seminar. We are very pleased today to have two presenters. We have Zsolt Havran and Diana Furtz. We're going to present cross-cultural management in professional football, what the cultural world models show in the football labour market. Before they start, it's great to have them, and welcome everyone who's arriving. Please do keep your microphones on mute as an administrative notice. One other thing to mention is something that's been as a part of Rogers for a while now. We're sponsored by the Sports Economics Review. You might or might not be able to see that on my background, around about there where my hand is, I've got a little front cover of the Sports Economics Review, the most recent journal in sports economics, of which two editors are usually here with us, Alex Creamer and Stefan Szymanski. They've been generously sponsoring this series and generously sponsored our conference in Reading earlier in the year. Alex was particularly keen for me to mention one of the particularly good stats about the Sport Economics Review, and that is that unlike lots of journals that we end up submitting to, we can end up waiting a long time, even for a desk reject for any kind of feedback. The average length of time before you get any initial feedback or the paper is handed to reviewers is all of 1 day for the Sports Economics Review. So it's a speedy journal with a speedy turnaround, a very welcome thing in this day and age. Alex is here as one of our sponsors. Alex, was there anything else you wanted to add in terms of your sponsorship of this series before we go?
Yeah, it's just the median time in days, 1 day, and we still have a high reject rate, but we are welcoming all the papers in the field. We're happy to go over it, and the good ones will be published, of course.
Absolutely. A number of papers in this series over the years have been published in the Sports Economics Review. So without any further delay, Zsolt and Diana, please do take away your talk.
Thank you very much, and thank you the opportunity to present here. I hope you can see the presentation, the slides, actually. And so my colleagues is Diana Furtz from University of Pécs, Hungary, and Ákos Jarabka from the same university. Ákos couldn't join today, but he was responsible for the culture models and the theoretical parts. And my name is Zsolt Havran from the Corvinus University of Budapest. So my main research topics and teaching experience are in sport management and international business. And in international business, inside the international human resource management, the cross-cultural management is a very important part. And we had an idea how can we connect this theoretical background and the sport. Now I would like to just highlight two things about the status of the research. So we published an article in this topic with using one cultural world model in the beginning of this year, and we worked forward. And actually, in this manuscript, we use 3 different cultural world models. We submitted a manuscript to the handbook of cross-cultural management. It will be a book, we hope. Every chapter will be inside, but we will get the final reviews maybe in September or October. So if you have any recommendations, critics, comments, everything is already very helpful for us in this stage. Yes. So here, I think everybody knows that the transfer market of football players is very, very global, and the number of foreign players are increasing from year to year. For example, in 2022, it was more than 42%. So it's to work with the foreign football players. It's an important issue, not just from the academic side, but from the management side. And we could find that a lot of football players who plays in the best big fives, based on the CLXXI report, arrives from Portugal, and a lot of Brazilian players start to play in Portugal because of the cultural closeness and the same language. So not just the biggest Portugal clubs like Porto or Benfica or Sporting use Brazilian players, but the smaller football clubs in Portugal too. So they can build a competitive advantage thanks to this. So they can integrate easily these players, and they can sell at a good price to the big five leagues. So our aim was to provide an exact answer to the next question: what are the relationships between the global mobility of football players and the cultural distance based on the different cultural models? Our theoretical framework was were the cultural world models. I will show you very shortly to you, and we work with the literature of the cultural differences in football and the cultural shocks in case of foreign athletes. The methodology we use the regression analysis. Diana will present you the variables and the results of the research, and finally we will show your conclusions and the future opportunities. So from management aspect and from the aspect the side of the clubs, the professional football players are the most important resource of the football clubs, and in this very global competition, if a football club can seek and keep the outstanding players, it can be a competitive advantage to them. In general, in the human resource management, the integration of new colleagues from very different cultures also can mean a competitive advantage. So we think that is the same situation in sport and football. And it's very important that in team sports, so we can highlight this aspect of this research, that we are working with the team sport. We can use the cultural distance with the special models that are the National Organization World Models. I will show you the three we used. Yes. I would like to highlight one paper from White and Brewer. So they worked the data of OECD, and they didn't work with football players, but in general. And they used three world models. Two was the same than we used, the third was different, but they highlighted that the individualism and collectivism is the most important dimension of the of this cultural models to identify the cultural differences and the global mobility. So the global mobility and global migration is the important issue of our research, and they could confirm the negative relationship between the global migration and the cultural differences. Yes, you can read here some definition of the culture. I would like to skip now because the time, and I would like to talk about the cultural world models. So in the last 50-60 years, researchers of human resource management started to build up models because they would like to measure differences of cultures and nations. And you can read here the definition. They worked a lot of questionnaires, and they use these questionnaires in every 2 or 3 years in a lot of countries, and they try to measure the differences of the countries and the cultures. You will see a lot of dimensions. We would like to highlight the individualism and collectivist dimension because we work with a team sport, and it's very important, this dimension in this case. We could find different papers and researches in general and in sport and football, and they use the same dimension. Okay, very shortly, the most maybe the most famous world model is the model of Georg Hofstede. He and his team characterized the differences between national cultures by using surveys, and the numbers are between 0 and 100. So we could use this numbers. Actually, they have 6 dimensions. You can read here the dimensions, and we could involve more than 120 countries to our research. The second one is the models of Trompenaars and Hamden Turner. You can see here that they used more than 100 uses the data from more than 100 and 40 countries, and you can read here the different dimensions. And the third one was the global leadership and organizational behavior effectiveness, and the method is similar, so we can compare the different countries and the cultures, and they have 2 different dimensions related to the collectivism and individualism, the institutional and the in-group collectivism. And our colleague Ákos Jarjabka started to compare these 3 cultural models, and finally we could see that this individualist collectivist dimension is a common, very common dimension in every world model. So we would like to investigate the differences in the market of football players. Yes, I think I told about this, the 2 legs, the international business and the sport management. And one important reason for us to examine this field was the cultural shock in the international labor market and in professional football. So we could find a lot of qualitative research which examine the cultural shock in professional sport and professional football in very different regions of the world. So it's a big issue, and maybe if we can discover the correlation between the dimensions and the migration, we can help the players and the clubs to understand this issue. Yes, there are some articles in football, and they could use the this world models, the Hofstede and Globe and the Trompenaars models in football, mainly in case of the performance of the multicultural teams. Szymanski is not Stefan Szymanski, it's Mike Szymanski. He's a professor of international business in the States. But you can read here the Freeman manuscript, and it's a very interesting manuscript. And Stefan worked in this team, so Stefan is an author of the other article, and they didn't use the world models, but they used the languages, for example, and the different skills of the football players. So they were with the different data. We collected the literature when they used the different cultural models in sport, mostly the Hofstede, but the Tamponers, and in some case the Globe, and mostly in case of the football, but sometimes American football, or case, not just players, but in case of referees or coaches. And you can see in how many countries were involved to this researches. So we could see that in the literature we could find a good base to work and continue to this way. So we would like to do a significant quantitative investigation. And why is it important? The using the data of football players, that in general, so for example, in case of the OECD data, we couldn't work with the illegal employment because they have only data with the legal movement and mobility of the workers, employees. But in football, we can work with the full sample because there is no illegal work in the professional football. The FIFA need to register every players, and for example, in the transfer market, we can find every transfers in the world. So it's a very good. Like it seems like a laboratory, so we can say maybe a little bit more than other industries, and we can say that the football players are high-skilled employees. So it's a special field of the of this research way. So once again, the research question: what are the relationships between the global mobility of football players and the cultural distances based on 3 different cultural models? And I think this is the point when I give the word to Dia. I hope. Dia, we cannot hear you.
Thank you. So again, many thanks, Zsolt, and for all of you for this opportunity. So I would like to just briefly highlight the main results and that how we get our original and the final data set, because I think it was not an easy decision, because what you can see here that initially we had, or we could collected more than 30,000 transfers between 2000 and 2022. So more than 20 years we could examine. But the problem was that, how Zsolt has mentioned before, that the data set or the subsample, how I can say, varies based on the different world models. Because in the case of Hofstede, we can investigate more than 100 countries, but in the case of Globe, this number is only 63 countries. It means, or consequently, we can say that all the transfers starting with more than 34,000, finally we could just, in the case of all measures, or depends on the selected world model. In the case of Hofstede 6-dimension model, we had more than 3,000 transfers available. But in the case of Globe measures, the institutional or the in-graph collectivism measures, this number is just, or the observations, our subsample is just more than 1,000 transfers. So the transfers or the sample is very limited based on the different world models. So what you can see here below the table, that we had an initial model that was published in, the results was published in the previous study, and where we just use the cultural distance of Hofstede model and the number of transfers. So how can I say the variable of interest is the cultural distance in our case. So we wanted to investigate whether there is a relationship between the cultural distance between the selected or the given countries, and the number of transfers in the case of early players. And of course, we know that we cannot investigate this relationship in itself, so we had to find further variables to take into account. And we have selected, in the initial study, we had selected some economic factor like GDP per capita and some professional aspect, which can be used as a proxy of professional distance in the case of FIFA ranking, because it's also available in all the countries. So when we want to see the professional difference between two countries, we have to just collect the FIFA ranking of the given countries. So after that, I'm going to show you the results or the model first. Please show it. Thank you. No, sorry. One more descriptive statistic, just an example that how the order of the countries vary in the case of the initial model. So in the case of the Hofstad's model, you can see the individualism collectivism index in the first column, and in the right side you can see the number of incoming players in the period investigated. So it means that most of the transfers was to Russia, more than 3,000 transfers. By the 10th in the order or ranking was Belgium, but more than 1,000 transfers. And on the left side, sorry, in the third column, you can see that how these individualism collectivism index is given in the case of United States. This is 91, while in New Zealand, this is 79. It means that we cannot say, in the case of these cultural models, we cannot say that in this case, United States is better in any aspects or New Zealand is worse than the others. It just measured we can by using these measures, we can use its differences between the two countries, that how they are close together by investigating this aspect as an example. So after that, please, Zsolt. Thanks. So here you can see in the first model, which was the initial or the original model. In the left side, you can see not the transfer, but its logarithm, since the relative difference is more relevant in our case based on our study or research question. And that's why we used a log-lin regression models in all the four models. You can see this. So I think the most important thing to show you, so in all the models or the four models, you can see the variable of interest, which is the 6D or the 7D or globe institutional or globe group collectivism measures. So these are the variable of interest, which we want to investigate, that whether there is a relationship between these regressors and the left side of the regression model, where we can see that how the transfers vary between the selected models. And besides or next to the regressor, we have also taken into account other factors that might cause some bias between the two, between this relationship. That's why we cannot omit them as variables. So these are just control variables like the GDP per capita, like economic measure, or the professional measure like FIFA ranking, the difference between them, of course, and the geographical distance, because we had a very, very useful comment from Szymanski professor, and we wanted to include this geographical distance as well. So
Dana, could I interrupt you? Alex had his hand up with a question.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I just want to be sure that I understand. So each outcome variable is, or how do you measure the outcome, is the transfers between each pair of countries? Is that what you're doing?
Yeah, it means that, so one observation means the number of arrival transfers to a given country. And the regressor and other control variables are measuring differences between the two countries. So for example,
just to emphasize, so let's say you have Hungary and Italy, you have two observations, like from Hungary to Italy and from Italy to Hungary?
Yeah, but you can see yes, you have a good question, with the absolute value of the difference we had investigated. So it means that with the same, and from Hungary to Italy, we have just measured the difference between the two word models or the distance, and from Italy to Hungary, because these are different transfers. You know, not the same player will arrive from Italy to Hungary and from Hungary to Italy, or it's very rarely. It can happen very rarely.
Okay.
So all the observations represent one transfer from one country to the other one, and that you can see on the left side, that the number of river players, how they change in relative, so in the log of the number of transfers. And in the right side, you can see the differences between the two countries in the case of a given transfer. Am I right?
Dia, can I add one more thing?
Of course.
I think it's important that we work with the first transfer, foreign transfer of the players. So because of the cultural shocks, we could see that if a football player of an employee in other industries moves to abroad, they started to learn how they can integrate to a new community. So we decided to use only the data in case of the first transfer to abroad. So, for example, in the second, the third, the fourth movement to the same country or another country, we would like to limit this data, because we think that the cultural shock is most important in case of the first mobility. In a later stage, it can be interesting to investigate the second or the third transfer, but I think it's important to say that this 34,000 transfers contains only the first global international movement of a football player.
Yeah, thanks for your comment. So it means that we assume, or we believe that this effect is we have the biggest effect in the case of cultural shock or cultural difference in the case of the first transfer. Like, just an example, in the case of Cristiano Ronaldo, I think from our aspect or based on our research, it's more interesting when he changed from Portugal to Spain, and not from Spain to Italy. Okay, there is another. It's a good example, because maybe we should also take into account from Italy or from England to Saudi Arabia. But I think he's a very specific athlete, or we have to examine these situations in the near future, because I think the number of these kind of players will, of course, increase. So we had these four models, and we wanted to investigate that whether this regressor or the relationship, or just the sign of this relationship, will vary between or among the selected models. So we wanted to know whether we can verify our first result or original result. Thanks, Zsolt, please. Thank you. So just briefly, here you can see the four models and the parameters results. That I think the most important things, just try to focus on the regressor. So below or down, you can see the control variables like GDP, FIFA ranking, geographical distance, and of course the constant. But there up, you can see that how these regressors like 6D, 7D, and the globe measures are still negative, with a negative sign of parameter. It means that we could verify that not just in the case of Hofstede, but if we try other world models, our results still can be strengthened. So it means that if there is a larger difference between the given countries, the fewer transfers will be I can say like will be done between the two countries. So in all the models, you can see a negative parameter, and the control variables are still significant. It means that if we want to avoid omitting variable bias, we cannot omit them as regressors. And of course, we can see that, so it means, okay, consequently, it means that we can just state that based on football players, based on this data set, and not how Zsolt just mentioned that, of course, that would be the bad thing if we could investigate the same situation or the same question based on a global employees data set. But until we don't have that kind of data set, or that kind of data we don't have, it means that we can try to focus on this and the football players. So it means that we can strengthen that football players or employees in professional sports try to avoid cultural shock. And if they want to choose a country, they will count and they will focus on, okay, next to other aspects or besides other aspects, but in cultural difference between the two countries as well. So I think if you have any questions, please. The questions are more than welcome. I hope I could.
Yes, we have 2 more slides only.
Okay. Thank you. Please, Zsolt.
Okay, very shortly. So if we go back to the some previous study, we could find similar results. So negative correlation between the cultural distance and the global mobility in case of football, and it was interesting to see that the geographical distance as counter variable has not modified the main results. And I presented you the white and blur article, and we had the same very similar results in case of football than they could find in general in any other industries. And we hope that we could extend this the literature with a very special example. So I told about the cultural shocks and the competitive advantage, and based on that, we have some recommendations to the practitioners. For example, to football clubs, agents, federations, or young football players. I think they need to think about the cultural distance when they choose a new league, a new country, a new football club. And we wouldn't like to say that never move to cultural different country, but let's think about the problems, and the football clubs can start new programs. We know that some football clubs have very good integrational programs, but the smaller clubs need to join and need to start similars if they would like to integrate the players easier. So not language courses, of course, or mentors, family issues, and so we can read a lot about this in qualitative based publications. Yes, and about the further research directions, 1 or 2 more world models we can find in the literature, so we can use more, but maybe it's not so important to just investigate and increase the number of the models, but the investigation of the different dimensions can be more interesting. So not just the individualism and collectivism, but the other ones. It can be interesting which is significant and which is not. We can focus on the effect of the skills of the players, similar to Freeman and Stefan Szymanski and others. It's very special. For example, the first percentage of the football players, if the base of the value of the players, or we can investigate the second or third movement of the players. And we can identify the regional or temporal differences changes. For example, now the war in Russia and Ukraine. So it can be an important and interesting question how it changed the this variable. And we hope that we can give some general comments to cross-cultural management. So in this presentation, we wouldn't like to highlight the cross-cultural management literature, but in this handbook, we need to talk about it. But if you have any comments from the and recommendation from the side of sport management, it can be very useful for us. Yes, and I think this is all, and thank you very much.
Great, thank you very much, Zsolt and Diana. I'm going to give you a team's round of applause. That was a really interesting talk on a really interesting phenomena. I was quite struck. I hadn't realised that there's literally no transfers between South America and England, and they all appear to go through, I guess, Portugal or Spain. So that's really interesting. We've got lots of time for questions and comments, and Alex already has his hand up. So Alex, go ahead.
So thank you very much for your presentation. Very interesting.
Thank you.
In the end, you said that you can kind of suggest players where to go, where not to go, to avoid some difficulties. But I have maybe two comments or two questions. The first, how do you know that these are not the agents who are driving this effect, not the employees? Because it's all about agents these days. So I'm not sure how much player has to say about it. And the second, you did not really find whether it was a successful move or not. You only investigate the transfer itself without going into the whether it was successful. So I'm not sure you can really say that you should go or you should not go to this country because you did not measure success. So these are my two comments. And thank you again.
Yes, you are right. So thanks for your very useful comment. So of course it can be, or it should be, further research that next to this, or in addition to these variables, we have to use other factors like the sports success. We can use all the sports statistics data. And for your first question, so I think it would be a very brave statement if we could say that we can suggest anything to the clubs. We would like to just investigate or strengthen the assumption that there might be some factor besides economical or financial aspects and professional aspects, which is the cultural dimension or the cultural difference between the countries. And I think if we can investigate more thousand transfers, in that case we can state something, or some statements I think we can conclude. So if we have a larger data set, we can say that maybe the agents will send some players, or they will decide instead of the players. But But in this case, we can say that we have to talk about this kind of cultural distance problem. And I think that from sports management aspects, we can just suggest to the clubs what Zsolt has mentioned before, that they have to handle this situation. And like, if I know well, please, James, just tell me if I'm not right. So like, for example, Chelsea has a group, a big group, whose responsibility is to handle the family of a given players, or maybe just in the case of the biggest stars. But I know that there is this kind of situation, or I can say that in the United States, of course, in major sports, I'm sure that they try to handle these situations. So yeah, it's Alex. It's a very hard question.
Yes.
So maybe we can just talk about the agents
Yes.
business. It can be a further research, and of course we should, instead of GDP, it would be the best if we could use the payments or the other financial factors, but of course they are not transparent still in these players. Maybe in major league or in the United States, the major sports, we could investigate this. But okay, there is the other rules with this closed system. So like ceteris paribus, we cannot investigate this question, I think.
Yes.
But
So
we have to try.
Just two more comments. Thanks Dia. That he has the success of the movement. It's very important, and we could find some articles. They measure the success of the multicultural teams, but they could use a limited number of years and transfers and leagues and clubs. But we would like to do a research in the full industry. So we measure the correlation between the global mobility and the cultural distance, and not about the. It's not easy to connect the success. And the other question, the agents, I think we should recommend the federations and the clubs. How can they decrease the risk thanks to the agents? Because the agent can recommend the players and the clubs that yes, you can move to this country because they give you a good wage, but the federations maybe need to start the programs for young football players and try to avoid the cultural shocks and maybe the very bad maybe the end of close the career of the players. Yes, but thank you very much.
Sorry, just one more question. Alex, please. Sorry, Bernd, you will be the next. Alex, please, if you would choose one factor, which you would choose, the team success or the personal success? Like a team statistic or individual player?
I wish I knew how to disentangle between them. I don't know, but you have the usual metrics: goals, assists, minutes played, ranking of the team, you name it.
Yeah, both of them. Okay.
But in the conclusion, the point is that in the conclusion, you said we can suggest to the teams, and
no, I don't.
This is something that I said, okay. Well,
yeah. No, I think it's maybe it's too strong. Thank you.
Great, thanks for that. Thanks, Alex. Bernd.
If I remember it correctly, your dependent variable is the log of the number of transfers between a pair of countries, right?
The log of the number of transfers in the case of earlier players.
So that means you lose all the observations where the number of transfers is 0.
Yeah, but at the end, when we have filtered, we dropped out all the countries where we couldn't find more than or at least 100 transfers in the period investigated. So I think they are outliers. Like if in 22 years, for example, to one country, I don't know, I don't want to name any country, but if there are just like 5 or 6 transfers in more than 20 years, I think we don't, like we try to drop them out. I think it's better. Thank you.
Thanks, Bernd. Kenneth.
Hi, thank you very much for the presentation. Very, very interesting. I can actually, I can confirm for the United States sports, at least for the men's, you have these people that are essentially, their sole job is to integrate and keep track of the players. However, in the top women's leagues, this is not the case. So you might have some heterogeneity there. Also, I can't remember, forgive me if I've forgotten this, but do you use transfers in the same country or just different countries?
Just different countries. Since we have, in the same country, you have the same measure. So the difference between Hungary and Hungary will be, of course, 0. So, and in that case, you cannot talk about, I think, you cannot talk about cultural difference.
But this would give you a base rate, right? Or a control in a sense. On, especially if you have some sort of level of success, let's say personally, also it depends on what angle you're writing, but let's say if you want more insights on players, you're using personal statistics. You can compare a similar player transferred in Hungary to a Hungarian team or a Hungarian team to an Italian team and see if there's any differences.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. We will try. Thanks.
And second, are there any controls for language? So like
not yet, but
okay.
Yeah, but very good.
Yes, but the cultural models typically has a big correlation to the language. So
right,
yeah. So they're integrated
in the measure.
Yes.
Okay, and then also right now it's just individualism. Am I correct? Okay. Because I also know like individualism can be also highly correlated with maybe even motivation or even like uncertainty avoidance, where a player that's is more uncertainty avoidant, probably wouldn't even select to transfer out of a comfortable situation, or one that is super like risk seeking, then they might be more successful in an environment in which they're not comfortable.
Yeah, thank you. It might be a further research to include not just the individualism, collectivism, but other measures as well.
Yeah.
Thanks for your comment.
Yeah, excited to see where this goes.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Kenneth. I was going to also ask you about the language perspective as well, because I'm very ignorant of this, so it'd be quite interesting to, I mean, you mentioned in your introductions also that the language was a factor for Latin American players moving to Spain or Portugal. So it'd be interesting.
Yes, I think, and we can work with the success of the players at individual level. Maybe we can include the language again, because in individual level we can, it's important, but in national level it's not easy to.
Yeah, I mean, I think the interesting thing would be to see, how much is then added in terms of explanatory power by the cultural distance measure over and above the language component, I guess, just, thinking about things. My other question was a little bit based on, I guess, Bernd's query about zeros as well, because to some extent, the way in which you presented it made me think a little bit about, the models that you might use, Tobit kind of double hurdle type models, when your dependent variable is 0 for lots of observation or lots of units, and then it's positive for some, and you want to have a model to explain why it stops being 0 and becomes greater than 0, and then a different model to explain the level once it's non-zero, because essentially you've got a load of countries for which there's no cultural similarity, and therefore there's 0 transfers, and then you've got all these ones which are in your model, and where you're then explaining the difference. So in effect, it's kind of the first stage regression that isn't there yet, which would also, I think, be quite interesting. What is it that leads to transfers taking place between countries, and then you've got a different set of variables potentially to explain how many transfers take place between countries.
Okay, I got you. Thank you. Maybe in that case, I should change to zero inflated models or something like that. But yeah, we can see.
Alex has got his hand up.
So exactly in that regard, I think it's more. I'm not a big expert in gravitation model, but it seems that that's what you did, right? And in that regard, so you have pair of countries, and then you kind of trade between them. This is what people in international trade do in the gravitation model, and then it's Poisson pseudo maximum likelihood (PPML).
Mm-hmm.
That's what they use actually, and then you have lots of zeros.
So not the zero inflated, but yeah.
Yeah, but not zero inflated model, PPML,
Okay.
because of the properties of the model.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Great, thanks, Alex. My one other comment was gravity model ? So
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
no, it's a really interesting piece of work. Thank you for presenting it. Do we have any more questions and comments from the audience?
Thank you very much. I noted everything, and it was very useful for us.
Thank you.
Perfect.
And I wish you a nice holiday to all of you for the rest of the summer.
Thank you very much. Really interesting presentation. And we do wish you the best as you further develop your work. We take a break next week because some of us will be fortunate enough to be in Rotterdam for the 15th conference of the European Sports Economics Association. That's the Erasmus School of Economics there. And as yet, we don't have a talk scheduled for September the 6th, the week after. So if you have a paper or you know someone that's keen to present and is available on September the 6th, please do get in touch. Failing that, we will next meet on September the 13th when Georgi Shakailo from the University of Michigan is presenting skis, poles and rifles, evidence of rational belief updating from professional biathlon. So wish you all a very pleasant rest of your August and see you all very soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.